You know what sad conclusion that I've come to recently? Because I was going to start doing some like home exercises. And I was like, you know what would be better for my joints is if I lost the weight first. That way I'm not putting all this weight on my joints while exercising. You know what I mean? So I'll just do the dieting, thank you. And none of the effort
Can't
part.
exercise because I'm too fat.
Yeah. I'm just not going to do any of the effort part. You know what I mean? I'm going to do the restrain part, not the effort part.
Yeah.
And because for health reasons.
For health reasons.
Yeah, I don't want to put that strain on my joints.
Yeah, of course. You know, it's the only logical thing.
If you think about it, I can't exercise.
Yeah, if you really think about it. If you actually went to your doctor and talked to them about it, and they'd be like, yeah, it's 100%.
Yeah, like if I went in and I sat down across from a doctor, they'd be like, you don't have insurance. Get out.
Welcome to Take a
can talk
Damage
to it.
Podcast.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
I'm Graythorn.
I'm also Graythorn.
I'm Nix. And then,
I'm also Graythorn.
oh, fuck. That's Sav.
No bulldozer today, just too quiet, guys. Nix, you're going to talk to yourself the whole session.
All right, so you got to do like an hour 30, and we'll chime in like 2 minutes each.
Yeah.
Everybody knows I'm capable. All right, today's topic. It's a crit fail.
What's one?
Yeah.
Campaign hooks.
Ew.
Yeah, campaign hooks.
I've made a mistake recently with campaign hooks.
You want to go over it?
Sure, yeah, I already started talking about it, I guess. Let me just get my bulldozer stance. I had a neat idea of setting up like a setting and introducing my players to the setting. And the idea was that they would find the campaign hook. It would be like introduced to them. The idea was like they were a part of a guild, and being a part of the guild, there would be some events or whatever, and then there'd be a big event, and that's the campaign hook. It was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Waiting for players to find the hook and then caring about it was a fucking tragedy. It was absolutely not a good move.
Really?
Yeah, it took so long to get to the campaign hook, and then when the campaign hook came, because they were already in play, in their minds there was like a, do I care about this or not?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
get it.
Where generally a campaign hook is like, hey, here's why you care about this campaign. Write your character for that. Like, here's why you care about this campaign. You are new to the city, and you are trying to find a thieves guild to join because you are a thief, but you don't have a guild for whatever reason. Writing a character appropriate to that. And that's kind of telling your players like, hey, here's why you care about this campaign. Instead, I thought it'd be really neat if they found the campaign hook. Like there was mundane things, because there was a big twist. There was a big surprise because they knew the world, and there was a big like twist to the campaign hook that I thought would be like, super. We didn't even get to the fucking hook. Now that I think about it. But anyways, it was a huge mistake because they were already in play, and when you're in play, D&D, choices matter, and you get to decide what your character would care about and whatnot. And presenting a hook already in play, just inherently the players decided whether they cared or not about it.
Yeah. I mean, part of that makes sense because it's like when you do like a freeform campaign, or if you give somebody the idea of a freeform campaign, usually you can kind of develop the hook because the characters seem to be driven towards a thing. And so at least that's
if it's a freeform campaign.
Yeah, that's how I treated like the game that that
totally.
we ran, which is like you guys all of a sudden were like, okay, this is the thing that they seem to be interested in.
Absolutely. You're a person that exists within the world. Find your own hook. Do what you want to do.
And then like me, like, okay, let me start hooking this thing that they're in.
Yeah.
And like,
your players are leaning in one direction.
Yeah.
Start developing that direction.
Yeah.
This was like, I have a pre-developed direction. And by not presenting it right away, I left it open unintentionally to them not caring about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, don't do that.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of that, like the DM tearing up the paper thing, where it's just like yeah, I could see where like,
But this was like tearing up a campaign and having to write a new campaign
oh, for
on the
sure.
fly and going from a pre-written campaign into a freeform style as a last resort. It was a mistake.
No, for sure. I get it. I get where, like, again, you in your mind, doesn't matter how much you think this thing is going to be so juicy.
It matter.
This thing is going to matter to my players. They're going to want to do it. They're going to want to take part in this thing.
Yeah.
Like, how could you resist? This is fucking eating me up. I'm so juiced. If I was in a game and the DM introduced that, I'd be like, I'm fucking in for every part of it.
Yeah.
And then when you present it to a table and they're like, no, I don't want any.
I want to go back to the bar.
Yeah. I actually want to go talk to the barkeep, because he was having some interesting stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I want to develop that more, not this.
yeah, he wanted to go deliver onions across the town. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, cool. There's this whole dragon sword over here that like was
Yeah.
the second generation owned from like a fallen empire.
Well, and also just like the rest of this world is not developed because I didn't, I was so sure
that they were gonna
Yeah.
fall for it.
like if you're going to have a player a campaign hook before the session starts, before session 0 starts, present that hook,
Yeah.
because presenting it later is a mistake unless you really know and trust your table and know and you have an idea and the experience to draw on how that would go. If you have a hook, use it properly as a hook. Don't
Yeah.
try and use it as an unfolding thing.
I generally, I think even like with your experience, it adds to it for sure. But even before that, I think if I generally had a starting point or like a kickoff or like a thing I wanted my players to do, yeah, I think I'd be very hesitant to let them get there.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of like the game you ran with us that you were running for us for a while is there was a little bit of that freeform freedom.
Well, there was also a hook. It was just a soft hook.
Exactly.
Hey, your goals are to kill everybody. Anyways, do whatever you want.
Yeah, there was a bit of a like freeform intro, but the whole time we did have this hook in the background. There was like a goal that we were heading.
You knew
towards.
why you were in the region.
Yeah, and that's again that's probably pretty important because it flavors everybody's decisions
On character creation
character
and how they
crea-
move through
Yeah.
an intro session.
the
all of
decisions
it.
you make in every part of every game.
All of
it's like when you have that hook, when you have that like motivation set in the player's mind, it's like, yeah, everything is affected so much by it. I could easily see that, like, hey, discover it. Like, yeah, I could see that being like a
Yeah.
easily fall apart.
Yeah, and it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like if you're not doing like it's a realization that you need to have is that if you're trying to if you're dealing with a table you're not as comfortable with, if you're letting your players find the hook, you need to have it in your mind that they might not, or they might not care about it.
Yeah.
And trying to get them to do it is gonna feel like railroading.
Yeah. And even like you mentioned, like your campaign hook doesn't have to start out with such a grandiose idea.
No,
Like
it could be really soft. It could be a soft hook,
could
but
be-
having a hook is important.
Not even soft. It could be like a minimal. Like the soft hook that you had for your game, it was still a big thing. It was wiping out this giant gang.
But there was no how to do it.
There was no how
like
to do
you
it.
were essentially placed in a world, and yeah, you had to wipe out this giant gang. So like, I would still call that a soft hook only because
I would still call it that too.
there's no story beats. There's no story beats that you guys are headed towards.
Sure.
You guys don't have to do anything in any specific way or order or any of those things. You just have a reason to be here.
Sure. But in my mind, it still was a big idea. Like, yes, it was a soft hook. I agree with you that it is a soft hook because there's nothing greatly compelling the players to do anything immediately.
Yeah.
There isn't like a. It isn't like you start a game and hey, you need to talk to this person. Your players are
Or you
on
start the game talking to that person.
Yeah, exactly. Like your players have gotten together in this town because they're going to meet the mayor because of this or that or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like it isn't that. That isn't like you're snatching your players to get onto this thing, and then that's like the whole idea of they're talking like depending on but talking to the mayor means usually you're on the good side. You know, your characters are flavored a little bit more on the where the good guys helping
Or someone
out the
that
city.
at least could
Yeah.
do
So-
that.
So like there's implications with some of those immediate things, but even with there's like the soft hook that you had, it was still like a big picture.
Well, so I would almost separate this from the hook, but I did something interesting that with that game, which is I gave you guys were part of a gang, and it wasn't necessarily part of the hook, but it did paint a better picture, and it made the hook make sense, which is I gave you a whole introduction of the gang from its start to what's happened over the course of 20 years to where you are now. So like a whole history and whatnot. I would consider that separate from the hook, but obviously still part of session 0. The hook itself is just that you're in this area to do this thing. But it definitely helped flavor everything for you guys, I think, having that full introduction and knowing what kind of gang you're a part of to decide how good or bad. And it was pretty neutral. You could be evil or chaotic or good or lawful or whatever and still be a part of that. It allowed you, it gave you guys the knowledge you needed in order to have the freedom to write your character and still be appropriate.
So in the definition of a hook or the idea of a hook, is part of the like setting stipulations part of that? Because I would the reason why I say that is yes, there was room to be not quite so good of a guys in the story that you were telling or that we were telling with each other in that game.
Sure.
But part of the setting, part of the motivations of our characters, at least in the generation and how the initial ideas of how we would act, at least in my mind, was part of that whole like the gang we were opposing were the really murderous bad type.
They were worse. Yeah.
And we were like trying to survive kind of gang. Like we did the bad things, but it was more of the goal of just like we wanted to keep our people safe and wanted to make sure that we were surviving well enough.
I think that it's really corner case because you could absolutely write adventure hooks and adventures where it's like there's a town and there's a thing happening in that town. You care about that thing, and that's the hook, and you don't need any history. It doesn't matter the setting, and none of those things matter. In this case, I gave you guys that intro, so I guess it could be considered kind of the hook.
Okay, that was my question.
I guess it could. I don't think it inherently is, and I don't think you need that to write a hook. But yeah, I think it at the very least is hook adjacent. I think it relates to the hook pretty significantly.
Because that I'm curious about that of like what is the actual like the definition of the hook. Like I get that the hook is like this is kind of like what
to me it's just
gets your players
why
going
do you
in a
care?
direction.
The hook is
Like the motivation.
Yeah, why are you here? It's the why of everything. Why are you
Okay.
here? Why do you care? You're a band of adventurers that's been hired to kill this dragon that lives in this dungeon. That's a hook.
Yeah.
It's the why. Why are we doing this campaign or one shot or whatever it may be? It's the why of it. And like I said, I think you could consider the history that I gave you guys about your gang as part of it. But you could easily run the same campaign and just say like, you guys are in a gang, and you're here in Colorado to kill these gang members, and then let the table come up with the who you are, what type
Yeah.
of gang you are, blah 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 blah. So it doesn't inherently have to have that history. But yeah, I guess to a degree, adding that history makes it a part of the hook.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, because like I get that you don't have to add it, but it definitely does help in like, especially if you have a particular kind of story in mind as a DM that you want to share with your table.
Yeah.
And you want
It matters.
Yeah, you want your table to kind of play in this particular space. But yeah, adding additional stuff like that to your hook
Yeah.
definitely does help flavor like. It was a huge motivations as to how like I decided to play Clint was all of that like additional flavorings and additional
Yeah.
stuff onto the hook.
I mean, also something that could be considered part of the hook in that scenario is the fact that one of the people at the table was your leader.
Yeah.
That changes significantly how you write a character as well.
It's funny because it's like the other thing that I think I really enjoyed about the Clint character that I played was knowing the hook that you made, where we're stopping this really bad merciless group, and we're the like semi, like at least more noble version of like a gangster. Maybe noble's not the right term, but like we're just
More
not
romanticized.
more romanticized, not as evil.
Yeah.
I definitely it influenced my decision where like the leader of our group, who happened to be Gray, like he was the big whatever. I definitely played into the idea of like my character has a particular loyalty to, especially even the like the backstory thing that you did to help kind of define
Yeah.
that hook and our character's
Another weird thing
motivations.
that I did. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great, but it was one of those things where like it made me solidify my character has father figures in this group.
Yeah.
One being Jules, one of the NPCs, and fuck, what was the name of your character, Gray?
Button.
And Thomas.
And Thomas,
Another
but
NPC.
at least immediately in the jump off point of the like how I
Yeah.
solidified the
Oh,
way I was
yeah,
playing
yeah,
that
true.
character was like these two father figures where like, man, this guy would have a lot of motivation to be in this group and to stay in this group. But I wanted to play him, and part of the motivation of playing him was like, if he didn't have these characters,
Yeah. If he didn't have these connections,
Clinton would be a part of the 103rd.
not necessarily that he would, but another life easily could.
Yeah,
He would. Clinton would have fit in very well with the 103rd. I think.
if I'm like in another life, sure, but it would like if Jules and let's say Jules and Botten had died at some point.
Yeah, and there was enough reason where you would have run across the 103rd and easily.
Clinton could easily have just
Easily.
been that guy, just
Yeah.
like been super brutal.
But you also played it in such a great way where you weren't open about that.
Yes,
I actually disliked it when it started becoming meta at the table of people
everyone talking
making
about,
decisions
yeah.
as if they knew those things about you. And it's like, nah, you've been very careful not to be a psychopath openly because you know it would be frowned upon even though you don't care.
Yeah.
Because you care about the people around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the way you played into that was beautiful. One of the more interesting characters that I've ever seen, for the sake that you easily, the hook being the enemies that you have, you could easily fit in amongst.
Yeah.
What an interesting character.
Yeah. I really like Clinton. Clinton, I think, was super fun character. And even like again, the difficulty I had with like, you know, we've talked about it. Difficulty I had in that game, you know, talking about the topic we're talking about, is the hook being such a driving narrative for me as a player, feeling like some of the decisions we were making as a group and as a table were not following the hook. And so like my character's motivations and what my character was doing and like allowing my character to kind of like, again, you kind of feel out your character as you play him, but allow my character, again, still having the thing where like, again, father figures, people he cares about in the group, that's still a thing. And so like having those characters in danger for the campaign hook and then making that matter and having that really matter and then being like, having those moments like, oh, how would this character resolve that? How would this character?
Well, it was an intentional dilemma of like you have people that you care about, but also the hook itself is extremely dangerous, which means the people
Yeah.
that you care about are inherently going to be in
Yeah.
danger. And
And-
that played out multiple times.
Yeah, and then having like feeling at the table to be like my character not understanding the decisions the group was making.
Yeah.
That didn't feel like they were following the course of like what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, how do I resolve that as a character at the table, knowing that like the things we were doing was all for the benefit of the group. We're all to like try to position ourselves in a better position to be able to handle the bigger number. But it was still one of those things where like it's I mean, it's part of role playing. It's part of TTRPGs that I find so fascinating is like, you know, getting these characters and try to like really play with their motivations and the things they want to do.
Yeah.
And at least for me as a player, having that hook, having the additional flavorings of the settings and the additional flavorings and the motivation. And I think even kind of what you did, it's just something that like that variation, or it essentially was a session 0, but like that variation you did of the session 0 was like, man, that was super fun. It was a super fun idea, and it helped solidify like everything that like my character was trying to go for. It was really fun. It was a really fun campaign.
Yeah, just for the listeners, the thing that Nix is mentioning is before anybody had characters, I had written little like 5-minute moments in their characters' lives before their character was written, and we played through them, and I mean, most of them are tragic.
Sure.
But we played through them, and they kind of gave you an idea of the world that you lived in and the type of person that would be appropriate to write and things like that. It also was intentionally before you had characters so that you inherently put yourself in that situation a little bit, just in 5 minutes of play, and then being like, yeah, that's it. That does not need to be your backstory. There could be way more to your backstory. You don't even need to address this in your backstory. It is just a thing that did happen in your life.
It's a snippet of a thing.
It's a snippet of a thing that happened to happen in your life.
And it wasn't like a full narrative thing. It was just like, here's a moment, and then your players, how are you reacting? How are you gonna like do the things? Again, this is before characters were designed, before names were supposed to be put together, and it was just like, here's a moment, here, or like here's the setting, here's the idea. Here we're gonna go back a little. Here's a moment.
Yeah.
How are we playing this out? This thing is now happening to you, and then like it was just really fun to have that as like an additional like sprinkling of motivation on top of like, because like for as much as we talk about it and as much as I've seen like live plays, a lot of times, at least for me and the media I follow, a lot of session 0s don't get recorded. Like they're not put out. Do you know any, Gray, that are like
Koibu, I think, does his session 0s.
Okay.
I do my session 0s, but I don't count.
But like Critical Role, they usually don't put up their session 0s.
Yeah, I don't think I see a lot of session 0s on any playlists.
I think it also depends on how you do it, because I think a lot of Critical Role, there's like weeks between their session 0 and their first day of play, so to speak, where they send things back and forth between the player and DM to create the perfect character for this campaign.
The only reason why...
So I think it's really dependent on the type of session 0 you do as a DM, whether it would be recorded or not.
Yeah, the only reason why I say that is I don't have a lot of experience with personally going through session 0s. Other than that, because even when I ran our game, it was all randomly generated characters.
Yeah, and we just jumped straight into
and we
the
just
story.
jumped right into it. There was no need for a session 0.
Yeah.
I have a fucking crazy session 0 that I want to run that we've already talked about with, and like your children witnessing the slaughter of your entire like city. Like that's like a, you know, it's a mage centric, you know, you're in a classroom with your wizard teacher as the whole fucking city around you crumbles and your mage teacher saves your group by teleporting them away, and then at the back, as soon as you come out of the teleportation, guess what? He lost some of his concentration. Some of your classmates are like embedded in stone, and like it's a whole fuck situation. You're like in the snow.
Is that something we would play through though, or is that the adventure hook?
It's part of the adventure hook, and it's that would be in my mind. That's the session 0. Is this like crazy event that happens?
And then write your characters.
Because in that session 0, in that time where you're in the classroom,
yeah,
is when you're going to build your characters. Like, what class are you going to pick? What first spells are you going to pick? And like that is going to be the sprinkling of like, oh, you guys are building your character in this session 0,
yeah,
whatever. And you get to explore a little bit of the system and explore a little bit of what's going on. And then it's just this like, boom, like fucking X-Men Sentinels
yeah,
come into the city and shit. And you could like, I want it to have your classroom be high up where your classroom has a view of the city because that's just cool.
yeah.
And then just see the fucking chaos of like
The
high
horror.
level magic being casted and reflected and shit just going wackadoodle like almost like the opening of Attack on Titan, where everything is peaceful and everybody loves what's going on, and then all of a sudden these giant human eating monsters are breaking through a wall and nobody has any idea what's going on and shit is just chaos. Like that kind of opening. And like I already spoiled this for you guys a long time ago, where
It'd be different if we.
yeah, I generally talked about it. I can't wait to do this in front of people that have no idea that it's coming.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I can't wait to throw this in front of somebody where they're just like, what the fuck is happening?
Bringing it back to the topic, relating to what you're talking about, that's also a big distinction between how to do your adventure hook, which is something that I've taken to as well. And I do for all of my games now, for session 0s, which is like, I like to give a very flavorful narrative exposition as my adventure hook, so that people get an idea of the mood that I'm going for, and the being able to be invested. I'm looking for a term. It's a term when you're like fucking, who cares? I'll just keep with invested.
Okay.
Being able to be like invested in it as a narrative before you start writing your character. Like one of my games starts off with you just entering a city, but there's a whole narrative intro that I give and it goes over where you come from, what you're a part of, and the journey. So you're part of a realm that's a flourishing realm, and then to the south of the realm there's a tundra waste, and there are rumors of a land across that tundra waste, and so you have to cross that as part of the adventure hook. And you don't play through that. I just narratively describe it, how horrible it was, how horrific it was, how you left with like 30 people and you're whittled down to like 3 being your adventuring party.
Sure.
In a very flavorful narrative way. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people just send you a paragraph.
Yeah.
Here's the story. Here's why you're here. Here's why you care. Make a character that's appropriate. We'll get going session 1.
So like, sorry, before I cut you off.
Yeah, I just a lot of people, a lot of DMs, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of DMs will give it in text or just a conversation at the table, like, yeah, you guys are going to be playing the campaign where you come from like I just described it. You come from a flourishing realm. You traversed for 3 months over a tundrous waste where it was really hard. A lot of people starved. A lot of people were attacked, and now you've made it to the city. That's the adventure hook.
Yeah.
And it's like a conversation at the table rather than what I do, which is like a narrative exposition of what the adventure hook is.
Yeah, even like the thing that session 0 that I have in mind, the reason why I wanted to make it so grandiose and so tragic is, one, to get the players invested, and I wanted the like teacher to give the message to one of the students, whoever would ideally be like my veteran at the table, to kind of like help guide the rest of the party to kind of do the things. Like he would receive the message from the teacher of like the hook.
Yeah.
Essentially, this whole tragic event leads it to be, now you're in this place. There's a thing that you need to do, given to you by the final request of the person who saved you.
Yeah.
And being surrounded by death and loss to hopefully motivate the entire party to be like, oh my God, that was crazy. How do we fix this? Or how do we help deal with the problem and whatever? So like, it's the same, hopefully trying to hit that same button where like,
Of like a narrative.
try to build this huge narrative thing to help drive that motivation to have the players be like, well, I'm not going to ignore this hook.
Yeah.
Like this hook is crazy. I'm going to go full bore.
Well,
into
and
the hook.
to be immersed, that's the word I was looking for. To be really immersed in the narrative before you even write a character, I think is really cool to do. Which I did with G&G. I did with the one I just told you. It sounds like you want to do with yours.
Sort of.
It's just a cool way to do it, is to give a narrative exposition. And your characters could be there. Like I presume in yours, we would be kids there.
Yeah.
Now, there's two ways that you could do that. I'm sure you have one in your head, but one, you can make it a play session. You can make it a play session where we're kids there. And
it will be. Yeah,
we're kids, and there's limited things that we have the possibility of even doing until we get to the point where we get blinked out from there. Or I think it would be also immersive if you wanted to make it shorter and get to the character creation part of the session 0 quicker. You could just explain that we're there like, hey, Gray, your character's there sitting in the front row. When you see this thing blast through and Sov, it almost hits you in the head, blah, blah, blah. And you're kind of like, you're not opening it up to play, but you're placing the characters there so that your players are immersed again in the narrative before it even starts.
My idea of the structure of how this session would work, it would be, ideally, there'd be like an hour or two of like play where their characters are doing stuff, if not more, because it
sounds awesome.
Part of the like the character generation is going to happen in the session 0 is
but you're playing us as kids.
Yes.
So we could do a lot of if it's prepubescent, a lot of our personality, a lot of our abilities, all of that would come later anyways. So we could be a air quotes different character in the introduction, but the things that happen would be important.
Yeah. In my mind, it would be, or in the ideal version of it again is like hour or two, maybe 3 of the playtime. The big event happens.
Yeah.
Leads to the hook. You're now in the situation where the hook is applying. And then that's the end of that session 0. And session 1 is beginning from
new world.
Yeah. Here you are.
Oh, I could see how like that could force character creation in really interesting ways too. Again, because you're going from prepubescent to adult, there's like a jump where like, let's say Gray's character in that session 0 hook narrative thing, in play, let's say he decides to try and save his classmates from something smaller that's happening just in the play. And it goes terribly wrong. And then in the time between session 0 and session 1, where he's deciding who he is as an adult, it could be that he decides, well, I played a hero character in session 0. I'm going to lean into that. Or it could be, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
That bit me in the ass. I lost my hand in session 0. I learned, my character learned a lesson, maybe for the worse or for the better, that I come first. And I'm going to lean real hard into that.
I don't know if I'm going to have such a dramatic jump in age, but
a jump in age.
But one of the ideas I've definitely played with, and I'm going to ruin it for both of you, I hope somebody else does it, is I do want to have, again, where your guys are teleported into like a snowy area. I want to have it so like in that post-teleportation of this snowy area is like characters will have like, your character will get up and they're dazed or whatever. They're like not sure, whatever sickness from teleportation. And like they see a hand that's like clawing up. And the character goes to grab the hand and lift and he can't lift. and then as he moves away the stone, it's because the rest of the arm is embedded in the stone.
You just don't have the magic to solve it.
There's no way to deal with it.
And
I want it to be fucked up.
and
It's
you
gonna
do
be.
that in play.
I want
Gray, you have a lot of experience through a lot of campaigns. How have you over the years settled on adventure hooks? What do you do?
It kind of depends what I'm going for. Like, if I have a more direct campaign in mind, I kind of do. I think the thing that you said you do, you'd give you give everybody a reason to be where they are, who they are,
Sure.
and then I would play a small introduction with that to kind of just set that, like, yeah, okay, this is the thing. You guys are helping some eccentric smuggler deal drugs across the country, and I'll play that opening, and it's like you're doing it because these guys will kill you if you don't, and I'll show them just how killed they'll be if they don't do it. But most of the time I'm playing a very free-form game, so I don't really have that campaign hook.
Yeah.
Do you have like a soft hook, like a very overhanging hook, kind of like G&G had, where they have a goal but you don't tell them how to do it?
No.
Just very freeform.
It ends up being a player-based hook.
Okay, that's
So
okay.
like, if your player makes a character with a particular personality, it's usually pretty good because I could play off of it. So like one player would be like, "Oh, I'm this alchemist's assistant. What do they want you to do? Whatever they want me to do." That's the perfect hook. Because now you can just make them do whatever you want. Say, "Hey, I got this thing here. There's a client down in that town. Take it to him."
Yeah.
I have a question. It's related to hooks, but I do think it should be a topic in the future. When you do that player-related hook, is it something that you are drawing on from their backstory, or is it something you are moving forward with based on their character's personality and how they play? Is it something that's developing at the table, or is it something that's pulling on something from their history?
It could go both ways.
Okay, just curious.
So like the guy in question, his character is an alchemist assistant. He's some sort of weird mutant, half dragon, gorilla man, monk. His boss is like, "Hey, I got this wand. I need you to take it to this guy all the way down there," and it just sets up so many things because then it becomes a chain reaction of, okay, now bring your boss the money, and now your boss is like, "Hey, I got this new thing," and they kind of just want to see all these things in action, and they have places to go to motivate them to go places, and that way I could sprinkle things along if they want to take a detour. And then you have players who are like, I'm just I'm a guy in a place. Doing a thing.
Or they wrote a whole backstory, but part of their backstory is that they left it. And
That's the worst. That's the
Really?
worst to work with, in my opinion.
it's so funny. I think when this does become a topic, I think me and you are going to disagree a lot because that's actually my favorite. I like having characters that I can move forward with instead of drawing on their past, if that makes sense. Like, I have on my current Saturday game, I have amazing narratives that have unfolded very specifically and specially for who a character is. But it's all shit moving forward. It's shit that they've bitten into as a character since the campaign has started that have developed into a story rather than I almost intentionally, so I explained this a little bit. It's the one with the tundrous waste and whatnot. The way I wrote that hook was like, yeah, you're not going to run into your stepbrother in this city. You are 3 months over the most treacherous travel that could exist.
That's a good way to do
You
that.
cannot, like your backstory, not coming up. It drives who you are. Your backstory is important. And I love, one of my other players plays a soldier. And he has the inspiring leader feat, and he blags it at the table. He just makes something up in the moment, but he actually gives a speech. And then during the week, he sends me shit from his backstory, and I fucking love it. I love reading every moment of it. But that doesn't come into play because you are 3 months of travel through tundras. Like you're not gonna run into
Yeah,
you're not gonna run into that guy that you robbed in an alleyway.
your characters are the
Divorced
immigrants
from their
coming
backstory.
from
Yeah,
Europe
exactly.
to the United States over across the ocean in a
Yeah.
4 month like ship journey. Like nobody is here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the second frame of the title is Path of the Outlanders,
Yeah.
which is kind of a series that I run, or a theme rather that I run. But yeah, the idea of Path of the Outlander is you're an Outlander. Your backstory's way over there, and we're not touching it. It's funny, we're such opposites in that sense.
It might just be my experience with the particular players, because like sometimes it's say
Well, a lot of people want what you're selling. A lot of people want to have a backstory that gets addressed.
yeah, that gets used in the story and it makes it feel like it's meaningful all the
Yeah.
time instead of just being like, I was
Yeah.
a guy. What are you now? I don't know, but I was a guy.
See, mine
I'm
is all
Batman.
about like arcing from that standpoint. So like have a backstory, and it's important, and it drives who you are. Now you're standing here in these footsteps, and then where you move forward, I very detailed, very carefully pay attention to everything you do to write specific missions. This mission isn't air quotes for you, but I definitely wrote it for you. Like, as an example, and I didn't railroad this in. It's not like this was always going to happen, but for Clinton in G&G, having your kid or your maybe kid,
Yeah.
having your kid be the one that gets taken hostage based on how you were playing the game, and literally even the things that you were saying that made you so torn in the campaign made your NPC kid such a viable candidate for that.
Yeah.
And that was so important to happen to your character. Had fucking nothing to do with your backstory, but it had something to do with how you play.
It had a little bit to do with the backstory in terms of
I made him your kid, but
yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of that part.
but I could do the same thing with Wen. I could have done the
Yeah.
same thing with Wen, which was a romantic narrative
Yeah.
that you were in.
Yeah.
I could have done the exact same thing. Also was a candidate for a situation like that happening, and that would have been really important for how you were playing your character and making connections with other
Yeah.
people in the camp for something important to happen to one of your connections.
And
Yeah.
then I took those connections and I put them in danger constantly.
Dun dun dun. The
It-
theme of G&G was hopelessness.
Speaking of hopelessness,
Yeah.
let's roll on the loot table.
For the lack of hope that we'll ever get real sponsor. I mean, better sponsors.
more well-paying sponsors.
More well-paying sponsors. He was it.
Oh yeah. I forget that I'm doing that.
Yeah, you're the guy.
I mean, when you have this kind of
Here we
music,
go. Come on, everybody.
why wouldn't you want to
When you got
sponsor
these
this?
tasty
Let's
jams.
go
Oh
and
god, that's loud.
roll on the loot table. Let's
Not
go
enough.
and see who our sponsors will be.
Let's go.
Let's go roll on the loot table.
I wonder how long we're still going to enjoy that. I wonder if it's going to be forever.
The funny thing is I don't immediately recognize that it's you.
You did a great job.
Come on, everybody. That's my favorite line
Yeah.
from the 2-second song.
Come on, everybody. Let's go.
It is an 8 on the die.
So that'd be 2?
Before.
That'd be 2.
I have no
It-
idea.
it-
I don't math.
5, 10, 15, 20. 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
D20.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Number 2 on our list here is Gastromancer's Grimoire.
I am hungry.
Oh, yeah, hey, this is scripted.
Totally not fudging these dice.
Yeah, totally not.
Introducing Gastromancer's Grimoire, the culinary adventure service where every recipe is a spell waiting to be cast. Delve into a world of gastronomic exploration as you uncover the secrets of legendary dishes from across the realm. Each week, receive a bag of reagents sourced from the finest purveyors of culinary delights, along with the scrolls scribed with enchanting instructions crafted by culinary wizards and Epicurean adventurers. From a From hearty stews imbued with the strength of giants to delicate pastries woven with ancient elven magics, Gastromancer's Grimoire brings the enchantment of adventure to your kitchen. Embark on a culinary journey like no other and unlock the flavors of the realm with Gastromancer's Grimoire today.
Damn, dude, that sounded fucking clean, bro.
He's
That
a
was
fucking
good.
he's a good ad reader. There's a reason why he does it. And very specifically I don't do it.
You don't do
and
it.
then like softly why you don't do it.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
In fact, actually the way he reads it
Yeah,
has
what-
nothing to do with why I don't read it.
when the lost episodes do come out,
Oh,
you'll all know
goodness.
why Sob
why
doesn't
Sob
do it.
shouldn't
Yeah.
the fact that I don't know how to read. I write page after page after page on a daily basis. Don't know how to read.
Granted, I do have a couple of meals from Grimoire's.
Do they carry orc meat?
Yes, you can order it. It's a little bit of a surcharge because the danger of getting orc meat. But I have it in my bag of freezing.
Do they carry
just ready.
human?
You can do that. It's an option. I mean, they serve all kinds.
My favorite Bob's Burger joke is the little old lady after they put the sign up for it being human meat or whatever, like cannibalism, and there's just a little old lady and she's like, I'd try it. I mean, what is it? Gastromancer's Grimoire? That honestly sounds like something that I could use, because if there was something in my fridge, just stacked prepped meals that I could just shove in the microwave, and it was like, the finest of elven cuisines, or something, I mean, knowing me, something more rugged, like an orc or a dwarf meal, a little more meat and potatoes.
Yeah, you are the most rugged man I know. So yeah.
The way I eat is just meat. I eat nothing but meat. Look, I know it's uncommon for a Japanese businessman to be rugged.
Oh God, more lost episode stuff.
I'm just saying, if my fridge was full of, fine cuts of dragon.
Oh, dude, yeah.
And I could just shove that in the microwave, I would probably eat breakfast.
Dude, how much I would want to know what a fucking owlbear tastes like. It's
Oh,
probably
man.
awful because it's carnivorous, right?
Yeah.
What would be in the Grimoire sorry, what is it?
Grimoire.
Grimoire, the Gastromancer's Grimoire. What would your speculation of the tastiest meat would be?
Well, I'm going to go a weird direction with this. I think it would kind of be considered meat, but I think it would be presented more like a soup, which would be any ooze creature.
Oh, that sounds like it'd be awful. That has like digested bones in it. There's no way.
You never had like a bone meal soup?
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Come on, man.
The bones is probably not the best example, but it's the armor. The armor and the dirty shoes and the leather, all of that seems like it's probably
It's not much different than what I eat now.
Also, the idea of the moral choice for vegetarians.
Slipping down that ooze.
The idea of the moral choice for vegetarians, if that's the reason why somebody does that lifestyle. In fantasy settings, plant things have sentience. How do you resolve that?
That's true.
There's plenty of plant-based
Yeah.
vegetable, vegetable, but
Like a myconid.
yeah, like a mycon, like fungi,
Well, you just don't eat those ones. What you do is you get yourself a herbalist kit. And if you don't have time to get a herbalist kit,
Oh my
Gastromancer's
god, I'm gonna
Grimoire.
cast Speak to Plants on a vegan.
this sponsor is opening up a world of possibilities.
What's the art going to be for this?
I'm thinking a plate with a weird colored meat.
Well, it's black and white.
Oh, shit.
We got to
Well,
we got to
you
work.
could do a splash of color.
I could,
It wouldn't take much effort to
It
do
would
a
not at
splash
all.
of color.
but I like the
That it's so
the
shitty.
shitty situation we've set up so far. I don't mind if I did color and I did shitty 4-year-old try to paint between the lines coloring.
Yeah.
Where the color is off.
Yeah.
The color's not.
Oh,
actually...
my thoughts is highlighter across the meat.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Like a bar.
Yeah.
Like it's just a couple of bars and slashes.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not
yeah.
bad. I could
Well,
do
you
that.
know,
I
with
could do
the
that.
with the like edges of it being a stroke.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rather
Of course,
than it
yeah.
being
Get a
square.
brush that has like
Yeah,
a yeah.
Anyways, back to
Back to the grimoire. No,
no.
but what I was gonna continue off of, Gray's point was one of the huge inspirations I had into getting. I mean, probably like a lot of people at that time, into getting to D&D was Critical Role, and Matt Mercer does such a great job of integrating backstory.
Yeah.
That like, granted, the session 0 that I gave you doesn't give a lot of opportunity for integrating backstory because
But that's
you
one
off-
campaign.
It's one campaign, but like I definitely have like the lingerings and the itches as a DM and even as a player to give my DM enough to work with to be able to play with my background because part of that is feels like it's fun when I see it get worked out well.
It really depends on the player's background. So like even in you're 1,000 million miles away from where your background happened. One of my players has like a lord,
Uh-huh.
right, as part of their race, not class. And that's come into play. And that feels background. That feels very background. But in other instances, it's all about moving forward for me in that campaign. I do have another campaign where the realm in which my players exist, they were born and raised in, and it hasn't happened yet, but even to a degree, it has already happened actually. But yeah, they have backgrounds, and their background shit does come up in the classic way, like well, not totally like Gray is describing, but it has so far come up in them being able to utilize skills from that background that would make sense. One of them coming from like a chef's background,
Yeah.
and they happen to get a job where they could swing around chef skills.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also gave me an in-depth backstory of where they lived in the realm and whatnot, and when they go there, some of the people they knew, and like, yeah, those things will come up. I mean, it is definitely so. But it has the difference is it has nothing to do with my adventure hook.
Yeah.
So what Gray is doing is taking those character backgrounds and rolling them in a freeform campaign potential adventure hooks.
Mhm.
Whereas mine is like they are not adventure hooks; they're just moments that might come up
Yeah.
in the campaign. So I mean, there's many ways to play with that. The background being important. Well, it should always be important in my opinion, but important, more important or less important coming up in the campaign, being a part of the hook or not. There's multiple ways to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of our I'm surprised we haven't talked about it yet, but one of our big like experiences, at least mine as a personal DM of like setting like a meta narrative as part of a hook is Realm Watchers.
Has two. I'm
It has
assuming.
two.
I'm assuming the hook that you're going to talk about is the oath.
The Oath and the General Guild itself.
Yeah, the Oath and the
being
Guild.
One hook.
That's the hook for the. That's the hook for the campaign in general and the setting.
The setting mostly, and
Yeah.
some of the campaign, if you can call it that, like, and also like it generally guides the kind of characters that
Yeah.
you would bring into these games. And then there's the second hook.
Well, sticking on the first one, go into detail for the listeners of what the oath is and what the guild is in Realm Watchers.
So I don't remember the specifics of the oath, but the oath is essentially lays out like a guideline, a code that if you're going to play in this game, and if you're going to create a character, there are essentially rules that the guild enforces for your character to abide by, which is
At
like
the penalty of death.
Penalty of, or not quite death.
Not necessarily. The penalty of not existing here anymore.
Yeah, but even like even that, the penalty of crossing it, we've left it open to each player to how much of that do they know? Because some players, when they play the game and they see somebody either oath break or die.
Oh, it was
some of them, it's the
part of
first
character
time.
creation. We said that like your character could either know this through experience having seen it, know this through rumors
Yeah.
from having dealt with other watchers who had potentially experienced it or just heard it being rumor mill, or you just don't know about this. You swore an oath and you don't know the consequences of breaking it.
Yeah.
Meta, here's what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
But for your character, whatever you want, your knowledge of it, whatever you want. But you did, as your character, every character you make did swear this oath.
Yeah. Swore this oath, and they get granted special abilities, and
You get bonded to an item.
you get bonded
Quite literally.
to an item that grants you access to like the infinite selection of magical items in the entire universe that you are currently living in.
Yeah.
So however much you as a DM or your players want to play with like the space of magic items, your character has access to them. You're limited by resources in terms of how the game is set up. But yeah, you get these magical abilities for the purpose of protecting the world that you're in.
Yeah.
The idea and the goal of it is essentially you are a freelance mercenary guardian where you get to just kind of roam and live a relatively lavish lifestyle because all your meals get provided for you through the item that you're bonded with.
You get
an amount of
payment
gold.
based on nothing. You just get money for existing.
Because the guild understands that you live in a world that operates on money and gold. So you have to be able to either schmooze or be able to just operate in this world.
Also important, your gear has nothing to do with the gold. In fact, you can't take gear outside of the gold. So the gold is literally just for the lavish lifestyle. It like your gear comes free through that item you're bonded with.
Yeah. So like the idea being at any moment, and it's also we never designated how long you have to wait between taking on missions. Your character could just live this lifestyle for months at a time before they take on their next mission. I don't think we ever really established a length.
No.
Granted, the way Realm Watchers worked is canon was like set at each game. There is a base canon, there's a base set of rules, and then just kind of like as for fun as being like the idea that we were playing with it, which is the rotating DM, was we get to establish little bits of canon as we play. You know, you as a player and you as the DM get to kind of have fun in this idea in this space. But that was like the overall hook.
Yeah, you use your character, and every character you write for this campaign has sworn an oath.
Yeah.
And whether your character knows it or it is meta, you will be snapped out of existence if you break the oath and you believe in the oath.
And it's also up to you how long they've lived this lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that could also influence how the character currently like exists.
So that there is that, and then the guild itself, which is the guild is like a shadow guild in terms of secrecy and mystery. And while you are superhero level powerful, you are also sent on what are otherwise suicide missions when there are threats to the world that the people can't solve. The hero that you are in terms of power, which doesn't mean you have to be a good guy by any means. But the powerful person that you are is the type of person that gets sent on this mission, and you're not up to potentially up to how dangerous the mission will be. Also being a part of the hook, the guild that you're a part of, you are a realm watcher. You're sworn to an oath to protect the realm from these extreme attacks on the realms from generally magical creatures or beasts or demigods or whatever.
And a lot of these rules too, and a lot of this whatever doesn't necessarily affect alignment, because like you could be a lawful evil character.
I had evil characters.
It's very hard to be chaotic evil with this setup. Like it would be, that's probably the one alignment that really gets ruled out, where chaotic evil is really hard because you're not supposed to endanger people purposely.
Well, you could be chaotic without endangering people.
But I'm saying like
it would be harder. It's the harder of alignments to roll.
It's probably in my mind
alignments are stupid anyways.
Yeah, it would be the hardest alignment to try to make work. But lawful evil completely doable. Like neutral evil, I don't know, is neutral evil even a thing? Yeah, neutral evil completely within the alignments. Like the ones that like at least sometimes when I imagine people hear this idea, they're like, oh, you're good guys. It's like, no, you don't have to be a good
No,
guy.
you could have sworn this oath, and you are sworn to the oath because you know it will put you in this danger, and you are kind of like that like classic Nordic thing where like you need to die in battle or whatever.
Or you just want to be powerful.
Or you just want to be powerful or whatever. There's a million reasons why you could be a part of it. They don't dictate your alignment, but you are a part of it and you do believe in it for whatever reason. Being the main adventure hook for the campaign. But the way the game actually ran, there was a huge turnover of characters, and the actual play was generally a string of one-shots, and the continuity being if your character lived, they get to play in the next one-shot. And each of those individual things had a hook in the style of a mission briefing.
Yeah.
Because as a Realm Watcher, you will get called to action. So you would get this mission briefing, and that's when we talk about a secondary adventure hook, that's the more specific in terms of play. Why are you here? You have the backup of why you're a part of the guild as the first adventure hook, and then you have the why are you specifically in this town per session.
And then the way we had set it up was each of us had two characters, no more than two characters in the background, and in meta, you would deliver the basic synopsis of your mission, and so the players would like, oh, I'm going to pick this mission. Like, I'm going to choose it for this character.
Yeah, this character would go on this mission. This character wouldn't.
Yeah, and then in the actual play, is your character looks through this item and accepts this mission and accepts that this is the game that they're in.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a bad call.
Sometimes you're like, sometimes it is not the right character.
Yeah, you're like, but this character sounds perfect for this briefing, for this hook. This guy is made for it. You get into it. Fucking 20 minutes in, you're like, oh, fuck.
Sometimes
I have fucked up.
Sometimes it was also the polar opposite. So we always tried to hit a fine line. The line that we tried to hit, it was so combat was almost always a part of things in this, and it was a one-shot setting. So there was always going to be a combat, and the level of difficulty that we wanted to hit, because part of using that item that you're bonded to was preparation. Your preparation would come from the role-playing and investigation you did. So if you nail the first part, the role-playing investigation, you could prepare properly, and you're better suited for the combat you're going to go into via magical items and whatnot. The goal that we all had as the task for the DM is the combat. The aim of the combat is, with proper preparation from your players, as in everything's gone up to the combat, one player should die.
Yeah,
like
at least
one player character, at least one player character. The goal is at least one player character dies. Sometimes, the polar opposite of what you were saying, we would have situations where you would bring someone in that was just so perfectly suited. The damage type the creature does, you are naturally resistant or immune to. And
fucking Harl.
Yeah, fucking hell, man.
I fucking love Harl.
Like, sometimes you bring in a character that's just so unbelievably suited that it becomes an easy mission, despite it supposing to have the risk of a TPK.
Oh, yeah. I remember I designed something where it was like 100%. The way I was mathing it out, I was going to fuck you guys up. This was going to be whatever. It was like some vampire thing or whatever, some crypt or whatever. I don't remember the full details. I just know you guys went in there perfectly suited with Radiant. Everything was fought. Like, I just got mercilessly fucked. And I was like, I think I even remember like mid-fight going, I think I have to make this more difficult. And like, tried to add an ability. I don't remember exactly what I did, but I tried to do something to make it more difficult, and you guys just breezed through it.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, fuck it. All right, cool. Damn it. Like, this wasn't the one where we experimented going at higher or lower levels.
No. This was a normal
This was a normal one that I had already ran several that were perfectly fine.
It happened to me all the time.
Yeah.
Where I would run a session and almost TPK you guys, and I'm like, oh, like the what did I call? I called it a sand crawl, which was like basically a desert octopus.
Yeah.
And I killed your character, and I very nearly killed Gray's character. Just absolutely almost TPK'd you guys. And then the very next time I ran a game, easy.
Yeah.
You guys just breezed through it like it was fucking nothing at all because of the characters you happened to bring in.
And then even like when we
God, that
experimented,
was a fun campaign.
oh yeah, when we experimented with the higher levels, like the first time, and like again, it was learning lessons of like we played and we learned what the do's and don'ts of at least playing with the system. Where like I tried to throw you guys into fucking like the second layer of hell or whatever dis, and like try to throw this crazy high level fiend demon who has like this immune to magic past a certain point. I made him even stronger than baseline, and I'm just like, yeah, this is gonna be a great fight. You guys are gonna be fucking awesome. You guys find him, maybe like an hour's worth of gameplay to like go through the city and like get set up and whatever. Meet this person, and just so confident with everything you had because I gave you way too much shit. Gave you the ability to get too much shit.
You gave us way
and,
too
like,
much of
too
the
much powerful
merit-based currency that we have in game. You gave us way too much for that.
And it was just like in broad daylight of this demon with like his homies. You were just like, yeah, this isn't a problem. And you just ran up to him and just killed him, his homies. Everyone else was scared because you were just these unstoppable fucking demon hunters that just decided to show up to hell one day and went like, yeah, we're ending this one. And it was just like, all right, well, all right, lessons learned.
That was like my favorite bit of canon that I added when you guys went to go against that. It wasn't your favorite session, but you went against that like demigod that had universes and tried to whatever.
Yeah.
And then like, just as a show of power, and this was the canon that I added in, I was like, oh yeah, he brings over this floating bubble, and inside you see what you recognize to be a level 20 zealot class realm watcher. You recognize that because there's only a handful of them that exist.
Yeah.
Just canonizing, like, maybe we don't play level 20. There's only a handful of those guys. They're busy fighting gods. You don't get to level 20.
That was fun games.
Anyways, to bring it back to the topic, the point of that was, that had 2 adventure hooks.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to point out, back to something we talked about earlier in the conversation, neither of them were narrative. Because we had the rotating DM thing, it was all conversation. The hook was all conversation because we were coming up with a world together. So none of us had the authority to sit there and narratively give exposition to anything. So, and then the style of the second one was also mission briefing.
Yeah.
It was in game on a technicality.
But it
was essentially like I talked about earlier, where a DM just hands you a paragraph.
Yeah. We just spoke about what it is you read on the mission briefing.
Yeah.
And we put it in the style of like, we had like a particular way.
There was
to
a style
present.
that the briefings were worded, but overall, it was essentially that paragraph that a DM might hand a player. It was just the DM reading it to the player. But it was only like a paragraph long.
Yeah. I mean, I hope there's some level of an audience that's listening to this point and they are interested in what we're talking about, because this would be the first thing that we present as like a thing from us creatively, is like, here is the game that we played that we had a lot of fun with, and a lot of the ideas that we banged out and we dealt with, the like, we didn't like this, we like this, kind of pushed this in this direction. But yeah, Realm Watchers. Hopefully at some point that'll get released as a free PDF for people to download and have fun with.
Realm Watchers is cool stuff.
Loved it.
We'll eventually release that.
Yeah, eventually, hopefully.
Well, I mean, so shouldn't shop talk during the thing, but we're getting to a point where we're in enough of a flow where we're gonna have, in terms of for the time that we dedicate to Unfortunate Ones, we're gonna have free time.
Yeah.
And therefore can start working again on writing our books and all of that good stuff.
I mean, that's our campaign hook.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hey.
Yeah, campaign hooks, very important.
Yeah.
They like so like specifically tie you to a story,
Mm-hmm.
and the better you do presenting your campaign hook, the better characters that you're going to get out of it. The reason why, and this could be just my lack of experience in how to present this, but the reason why I don't do the just sending my players a paragraph style is because in my experience, I get better characters out of dragging the shit out of the campaign hook in the session 0 with the narrative exposition and the details and even a conversation where people ask me about the world, ask me about the guild, ask me about the story, ask me about the bad guy. The more care and love that you put into that adventure hook, the better characters get written for the adventure hook. So it's not just I'm some guy. You know what I mean? The characters are written more in tune with. I mean, even if it's such a soft hook, as in like it's a freeform game, and you're like, you guys are a party. Talk about it. You know what I mean? Even that gives enough hook where good characters can be written. Because if you have people, and I've had this a lot in my experience doing as a pro DM, if you allow or cultivate people to come in with pre-designed characters, not just mechanically, but personality and background as well, they don't come in well meshed into your party. So the better you do with your adventure hook, the better your players can navigate creating a character that is going to fit in well. As an example, I have a colonial era inspired fantasy game that I run in D&D with an expanded weapons list of muskets and shit. But the adventure hook is so detailed that while not necessarily appropriate for the party is a unit in a specific military, and my characters thus far have all been written well for that unit, which lends themselves to be better as a party.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the more love you put into that adventure hook, the better characters that you're going to get out of it. And the more, I think, immersed your players are going to be in the story before it even begins.
I think so far, I think for your experience, yes, but I think maybe like I could see that might not be as important based off of either the kind of game that you want to run or the kind of games your players want to run or how familiar you are with your players. Like, I think if you're like
wacky, goofy fun times, who cares about the adventure
not
hook or
even
what
that,
people
but
bring
like,
in?
if you're familiar enough with your players and you just kind of like, hey, you're our usual DM, let's play another game. And you're like, all right, well, what are you? It's like, yeah, I'm this guy. You go, all right, cool. You guys are here.
Oh yeah, but you haven't written a story at all yet.
Sure, I'm just saying that like
in a scenario where it's that freeform where you haven't even written the campaign yet and people are deciding who they are, then you're going to inherently write the campaign around who they are.
Yeah, sure. I'm just saying that there's levels to it. For the most part, I do agree with you.
Well, just as an example, if the game that you're playing, you guys are the guard of a city, right? That's the story. And your character writes a character who is a rogue, who is spec'd out to be a really good thief, and then has a personality trait where they're also an arsonist. That doesn't fit the game well at all. And you might get that if you don't put care into your adventure hook. If they don't know that they're a city guard, or they don't know the gravity of what it means to be a guard, they might write the arsonist thief. Which is fine if your whole party's doing that, but if your whole party is written properly to be a city guard and then you have that one character, they're going to be a bad fit at the table, and that's not even their fault at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. It's also like, even for you, as much as you've helped construct like the these barriers, or you wanted to create this like this the method you're trying to cultivate in G&G. Sometimes your player just doesn't listen to some of the instructions and just creates a character that's like a cartoonish
and was a bad fit.
Yeah.
Case in point. Case in point. Yeah, we had one character. The player misunderstood the idea that I had told everybody not to write
Yeah.
a character yet until we did the session 0. This was an introduction of not only the campaign, but also an introduction of literally the system, because I homebrewed the entirety of the system. And they didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't catch that piece of information of like, don't write a character. So they came in with this very cartoony character into a very serious campaign. And I'm sure it would have adapted over time. Unfortunately, that player only got to play one session or 2 sessions or whatever.
One or two, something like that.
And wasn't able to return to the table. I'm sure they would have adapted the character to fit over time. But yeah, in that like first session, did not fit.
Yeah. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. It was very funny, but if you had a campaign of not fitting in, it would suck for the player. And it also sucks for the party, because the party is like, let's say the game is some type of strategy where you have to really plan ahead before you go into a combat and whatnot. And then you have that player that's like, oh, I'm just going to run in gung-ho. And they're constantly just blowing the party's cover. That sucks for the party.
Yeah.
In a more serious campaign. Again, wacky, goofy, fun times. Who fucking cares what anybody's doing? Burn down the building while another person's trying to have a conversation and another one's murder hoboing in the street. Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a time and a place for that kind of like.
If I was going to run a wacky, goofy, fun time campaign, which I do on occasion, but for the most part I don't do. I run more serious role-playing, emphasis on role-playing serious narratives with a underbelly of hopelessness. But when I do run wacky, goofy, fun time campaigns, I do just give that one paragraph of like, man, you're a party. Here's why you're here. Have fun.
Yeah.
3 sentences.
Granted,
have a good time.
My creativity lies a lot more in line with your version of it, your version of like storytelling. But yeah, I think if I was to just like, if I had in mind that like, oh, my players are just gonna have fun, they're just gonna be silly and do whatever they want. It's kind of like our first campaign, like that I ran.
I think if you knew what the party was going to be, you would have written even less.
Yes,
because who cares?
I over prepared because I had no expectations.
Yeah,
but what that game eventually turned into was just like a power tripping, like, yeah, you guys are powerful,
evil. Everybody alignment evil.
Yeah, everyone's just like very selfish and just kind of doing what they want.
Not necessarily murder hobo. We didn't kill everybody, but like
we
were pretty.
You fucking
evil.
reeked a guy.
But we could have if we wanted to.
We could have if we wanted to. We had.
And we reminded the DM that we could.
all I know, again, if anybody's a fan of Game of Thrones was around this time that we were doing this, and they fucking reeked a guy.
Oh, Lance wishes he was just reeked.
That's true.
Oh, Lance. My sweet child.
Sweet Prince of Darkness, right?
We lanced him, and then my character, was it Stockholm Syndrome?
Yeah, something like that.
My character Stockholm Syndrome, and it was not pretty.
Some stuff that happened in that game is just like, man, that was crazy.
We took away his ability to enjoy any of life's pleasures, and then doted on him. Like the dark prince that he was. Absolutely beautiful. Anything else you guys want to add? Anything rolling around in your guys' brains on Adventure Hooks?
I had something a lot earlier, but then it got bulldozed through by Sav and then the commercial. So
bulldoze. I'm sorry, man. I'm gonna bulldoze you. Do you remember what it was?
No.
Well, nobody cares then.
It's long gone. That hook's over. We passed by it.
You were hoping we were gonna latch onto that adventure hook, but we didn't.
I put the hook out there, and the players are like, I don't look at that bait. Never set.
You know how much I really wanted you to get into the topic to start going and just bulldoze right over you?
Yeah.
Oh, like right now?
Yeah, we got him.
Oh, did he find it? Anyway,
this is all there.
Oh, sorry, your 2 minutes are up. Little do you know that the 2 minutes of my talking is enforced by both Nix and Saw. It is a limit.
It's a maximum.
Yeah.
Yeah, the timer.
Oh, sorry, I said that wrong. That implied I didn't know. I meant like, oh, it's a maximum.
Yeah, the timer's up there. It's on the wall. I'm clicking. I'm making sure. Gray knows.
Well, the problem is he has that really good ad read voice, and we don't want that to overpower.
Oh yeah, we don't want to wear out that voice. It's so good for the ad read.
Well, I meant we don't want to overpower our voices, because like if we let him talk the whole time,
oh yeah, people.
No one would care what we have to say.
Oh, exactly. People want to hear Gray. If you hear more of it, you're just gonna like, oh, I want to hear more of that, and we've got to limit that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a maximum.
Small doses.
Oh, there's a maximum.
Yeah.
All right, why don't you take us home then? Sign us out.
Okay.
I don't know how that works.
Hold on. Hold on there.
I'm opening.
I don't trust you around the computer mouse.
I'm opening.
I do not trust you around the computer mouse. That is, by the way, the highlight of the last episode. I didn't even ask you guys. I just did it. It's so good.
Yeah.
And it's also
I
the
expected
best
it to be.
thing.
I
Like,
expected it.
I made 5 highlights. It's by a mile the best one. You fumbling around and then me confusing you. Oh, it's so fucking good. Anyways, thank you for listening to Take the Damage
God, I want to play
podcast.
it so bad.
I'm Sav.
I'm Nix.
I'm Graythorn.
You can catch any various links that I might have in the description. You can catch me over at startplaying.games if you want me to DM for you, which I would be happy to do. Yeah, check out the description. Nix?
Yeah, my stuff will be in the links. Nothing immediately to plug.
Same thing. Links. I could DM a game for you, but I don't got no start playing, so good luck with that.
Good luck finding them. You have to. Can you message people on Twitch?
Yeah.
You have to
can.
find his Twitch. You have to message him and hope he's not so popular by the point that you do that he sees your message.
Also, we enforce this maximum of his talking his whole life. So as a DM, there's a maximum limit of how much you can talk.
Yeah, it's a lot of player roleplay. By force.
I just show up and I say, okay, guys, what are you doing? And then I turn it off.
Yeah. Immediate mute. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
All right,
Catch you next session.
Bye-bye. I was waiting for Gray to say bye.
He doesn't say bye.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Forgot about that.
I ran out of words.
He hit
Word
his
count's
limit.
red.